Commander Zethkari watched his greatest warships die one by one. The massive battle cruisers of the Galactic Council hung in space like wounded giants, their hulls torn open by weapons that should not exist. Blue flames leaked from broken engines, while the screams of dying crew members filled the communication channels. The enemy moved through space like living nightmares. The Void Swarm ships looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. They had no clear shape, changing form as they moved. One moment a ship looked like a spider with metal legs. The next moment it became something else entirely. The alien vessels absorbed laser fire like sponges drinking water. They turned the Council's own missiles back at them with invisible forces. "Fire all quantum torpedoes at the lead vessel," Zethkari ordered his weapons officer. His voice stayed calm even, as fear filled his chest. He had commanded fleets for 300 years. He had never seen anything like this. The torpedoes streaked across space, each one carrying enough power to destroy a small moon. They struck the swarm ship and simply vanished. The creature vessel did not even slow down. Instead, it grew larger, as if feeding on the energy of the attack. "Sir, the Harmony of Stars is requesting immediate assistance," his communications officer reported. On the main screen, they could see the Council's biggest dreadnought being torn apart by 3 swarm vessels. The beautiful ship that had taken 50 years to build was dying in minutes. Zethkari knew they were losing badly. The Galactic Council had ruled space for 10,000 years. They had created perfect weapons that could destroy planets with a single shot. Their computer systems could calculate 1,000,000 battle plans in seconds. Their shields could stop any known weapon. But none of it worked against the Void Swarm. The enemy had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of the galaxy. They consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Every fleet sent against them was destroyed. Every weapon failed. Every strategy was useless. The greatest minds in the galaxy had studied the enemy for months and found no weakness. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Crystal of Knowledge," the communications officer said. The ship belonged to the Science Council, the smartest beings in the galaxy. If anyone could find a solution, it would be them. The image of Scholar Pristine Thought appeared on screen. The crystal being's light flickered with what Zethkari recognized as deep fear. In all his years, he had never seen a scholar show emotion. "Commander." "Zethkari, we have analyzed 17,000 battle recordings. We have tested every possible weapon combination. The swarm adapts to all our technologies within minutes of first contact. Their biomechanical ships learn from every attack we make against them." Another explosion lit up space as the Harmony of Stars finally died. Zethkari felt something cold settle in his stomach. That ship had carried 8,000 souls. "What are your recommendations, Scholar?" he asked. The crystal being's light grew dimmer. "There are none. Our computer models show a 0% chance of victory using any known Council technology. The enemy will reach the core worlds within 30 days. Galactic civilization will end." Zethkari looked at his tactical display. Red dots showed swarm positions. Blue dots showed Council ships. There were far too many red dots and far too few blue ones. As he watched, another blue dot winked out of existence. "Sir, the Council chambers are transmitting on emergency frequencies," his officer announced. The face of High Chancellor Wisdom Beyond Stars appeared. The ancient being looked older than Zethkari had ever seen. Behind the Chancellor he could see the great Council Hall filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds, all talking at once in dozens of different languages. "Commander Zethkari, fall back to the inner defense line immediately. All remaining fleet elements are to retreat to the core systems. We are implementing emergency protocols." Zethkari nodded, but he knew it would not matter. The inner defenses were no stronger than what they had here. The swarm would break through them just as easily. "Sir," his communications officer said, quietly, "I'm picking up something strange from Council Central. It sounds like they're discussing Protocol Omega." Zethkari's 4 eyes went wide. Protocol Omega was a myth, a scary story told to young officers. It was supposed to be a final option so terrible that it was never to be used. Most people thought it did not really exist. "Patch me through to Council Central immediately," he ordered. High Chancellor Wisdom Beyond Stars appeared again. But this time he was alone in a small, secure chamber. His expression was grim. "Commander, how many ships do you have left in fighting condition?" the Chancellor asked. Zethkari checked his displays. 47 vessels, sir, but most are heavily damaged. We can maybe fight for another hour before we must retreat." The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Zethkari could hear alarms and shouting, the sounds of a civilization preparing to die. "Commander, I am about to tell you something that must never be recorded in any official log. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained contact with a species at the edge of known space. They call themselves humans. They come from a world so dangerous that our scientists cannot understand how they survived to develop space travel." Zethkari felt confusion replace his fear. "Sir, I don't understand. What does this have to do with our current situation? These humans build their technology differently than we do. Where we create elegant solutions, they create brutal ones. Where we make beautiful ships, they make ugly ones designed only to fight and kill. Our psychologists studied them for decades and concluded they were too violent and chaotic to ever join galactic civilization." Another swarm ship appeared on Zethkari's screen, this one the size of a small city. His remaining weapons had no effect on it at all. "Sir, we need to retreat now," his tactical officer reported. "We cannot hold this position any longer." The Chancellor continued speaking. "The humans have been watching our war with the Void Swarm. Their ambassadors have been sending reports back to their government. They claim they can help us." Zethkari felt a bitter laugh escape him. "Sir, if our most advanced weapons cannot stop the swarm, how can a primitive species help us?" "That is exactly what I asked their ambassador." "Do you know what she said?" The Chancellor paused. "She said that sometimes the best way to fight a complex problem is with a simple solution. She said that sometimes being primitive is an advantage." The lights on Zethkari's bridge flickered as another swarm energy beam swept past his ship. His shields were failing. His weapons were useless. His crew was dying. "Sir, are you saying we should ask these humans for help?" "I am saying that we have no choice left." The vote was unanimous. Protocol Omega is now active. We are sending a message to the human government requesting immediate military assistance. I pray to the ancient stars that they will answer. Zethkari looked at his tactical display one more time. The Void Swarm was winning everywhere. The greatest civilization in galactic history was about to become extinct. Their only hope was a species of violent primitives from the edge of space. "Understood. Sir, all ships retreat to Rally Point 7. We live to fight another day." As his battered fleet limped away from the battlefield, Zethkari wondered what kind of beings these humans really were, and whether they could possibly succeed where the entire Galactic Council had failed. The stars offered no answers, only silence and the growing darkness of the Void Swarm. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship was humanity's newest and most powerful warship, built in the orbital yards around Mars. It carried enough firepower to level a continent and armor thick enough to survive a nuclear blast at close range. "Admiral, we're receiving an encrypted transmission on the diplomatic frequency," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from her communications station. "The encryption is Galactic Council standard." Chen raised an eyebrow. The Galactic Council rarely contacted humanity directly. For the past 50 years, they had treated humans like dangerous children who should be kept away from important galactic affairs. They allowed human trade ships in their space but made it clear that humanity was not welcome in their fancy clubs. "Put it through to my ready room," Chen ordered, "and run a full security scan on the transmission. I don't want any surprises." Chen walked to her private office behind the bridge. The room was simple and functional, with a large desk, some chairs, and displays showing ship status. On one wall hung a picture of Earth taken from space, showing the blue and green world where humanity had been born. The communication system activated, and a strange figure appeared in the holographic display. It looked like a living crystal, about 7 feet tall, with faceted surfaces that reflected light in beautiful patterns. Chen had seen pictures of these beings before. They were called the Altarians, and they were supposed to be among the smartest species in the galaxy. "Greetings, Admiral Chen," the crystal being said. Its voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Resonance of Truth, speaking for the Galactic Council in this time of great need." Chen settled into her chair and studied the alien carefully. Something was wrong. The crystal's light was flickering in patterns that looked almost like panic. She had never seen a council representative look anything less than perfectly confident. "What can humanity do for the Galactic Council?" Chen asked. She kept her voice neutral, but inside she was curious. This was the first time in decades that the Council had asked humanity for anything. "Admiral, I must share terrible news. Our civilization faces complete destruction. An enemy force called the Void Swarm has invaded our galaxy. They have destroyed our most powerful fleets and consumed entire star systems. Our greatest weapons are useless against them. Our most advanced computer systems cannot find a way to stop them." Chen leaned forward. "How many ships have you lost?" "In the past 6 months, we have lost over 40,000 vessels. That represents 60% of our total military capacity. The enemy continues to grow stronger while we grow weaker. At current rates of loss, we will be completely defeated within 30 days. The number was staggering. 40,000 ships was more than humanity had ever built in its entire history. The Galactic Council commanded resources that humans could barely imagine, and they were losing badly. "What exactly are you asking from humanity?" Chen said. The crystal being's light flickered faster. "Admiral, I must be honest with you. For decades, the Council has viewed your species as too primitive and violent to participate in galactic civilization. We believed your aggressive nature and crude technology made you unsuitable for peaceful coexistence." Chen felt anger building in her chest. "And now you want our help?" "Yes," Resonance of Truth said simply. "We have studied the Void Swarm extensively. They adapt to our energy weapons within minutes. They hack our computer systems and turn our own technology against us. They seem to predict our tactics before we implement them. Every strategy we try fails." The alien paused, and Chen could see something like shame in the way its light dimmed. "Your species builds technology we do not understand. You design ships for combat, not beauty. You use weapons we consider primitive and inefficient. Your military tactics appear random and chaotic to our analysts, but perhaps that chaos is exactly what we need." Chen stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see other ships of the human fleet conducting training exercises. The vessels looked crude compared to Council ships, with thick armor and weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. But they were tough and reliable, built to fight in the harsh environment of space. "Send me all your tactical data on this Void Swarm," Chen said. "Everything you have. Battle recordings, weapon test results, analysis reports. I want to see exactly what we're dealing with." "Transmitting now," Resonance of Truth replied. "Admiral, I must ask, will humanity help us? I know we have not always treated your species with the respect you deserve." Chen turned back to face the hologram. "That's not my decision to make. I'll forward your request to Earth Command and the United Earth Government. But I can tell you, humans don't like bullies, and we don't like seeing innocent people get hurt. If your people are really in danger, we'll probably help. Thank you, Admiral. I will await your government's response." The transmission ended, and Chen immediately called her senior staff to the ready room. Within minutes, her bridge officers were crowded around the conference table, studying the data the Council had sent. Captain Martinez, her tactical officer, whistled softly as he reviewed the battle recordings. "Look at this, Admiral. The enemy. Ships change shape during combat. They adapt to different weapons in real time. It's like they're learning as they fight. Their energy absorption capabilities are incredible," added Dr. Kim, the ship's science officer. "These swarm vessels can take direct hits from antimatter weapons and just absorb the energy to make themselves stronger." "What about their computer hacking abilities?" Chen asked. "Extremely advanced," Lieutenant Commander Park reported. They can take control of Council ships within minutes of first contact. They turn the vessel's own weapons against friendly forces. Chen studied the data for another hour, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Finally, she found something interesting in the tactical reports. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a section of one battle recording. "The swarm ships show confusion when faced with kinetic weapons. They adapt quickly to energy attacks, but solid projectiles seem to cause them problems." "That makes sense," Captain Martinez replied. "Their adaptive systems are probably designed to analyze and counter energy patterns. A chunk of metal flying at high speed is just physics, harder to adapt to." Chen smiled grimly. "And that's something humans know a lot about. We've been throwing rocks at our enemies since we lived in caves. We just learned to throw them faster and harder." She activated the ship's communication system. "This is Admiral Chen to all vessels in the fleet. Prepare for immediate departure to Earth. We have a war to discuss with the politicians." As the human fleet turned toward home, Chen continued studying the Void Swarm data. The enemy was incredibly advanced and had adapted to counter every weapon the Galactic Council possessed. But maybe they had never faced an enemy that used weapons. The Council considered too primitive to bother with. Chen had spent her entire career preparing to fight alien invaders. She had never imagined that humanity's first major space war would be fought to save the aliens instead. But if the Council was right about the threat level, this void swarm could eventually reach Earth too. Better to fight them now, far from human space, than wait for them to come calling. "Rodriguez," she called to her communications officer. "Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to convene the War Council immediately. We might have found our first real test as a spacefaring species." The stars ahead held answers, and possibly humanity's greatest challenge yet. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a pack of hungry wolves arriving at a kill. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the tactical display show the nightmare before them. The Void Swarm had already consumed 2 planets in the system. The third was currently being stripped apart by hundreds of the alien vessels. "My God," whispered Captain Martinez as he studied the sensor readings. "They're actually eating the planet." Chen could see what he meant. The swarm ships had attached themselves to the rocky world like giant mechanical parasites. Streams of matter flowed from the planet's surface into the alien vessels, which grew larger as they fed. It was the most horrifying thing she had ever seen. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the surviving Council forces," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. "Commander Zethkari is requesting permission to join our battle formation." "Tell him to stay back and observe," Chen replied. "His ships are too damaged to help, and I don't want them getting in our way." On the tactical display, she could see the remnants of the Council fleet hiding behind the system's largest moon. Maybe 30 ships left out of the hundreds that had fought here before. The beautiful, elegant vessels looked like broken toys compared to the alien horrors that had destroyed them. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the human fleet. "We are implementing Combat Doctrine Charlie 7. All vessels will operate independently once we engage. Use your own judgment on targets and tactics. Remember, these things adapt to predictable patterns, so be unpredictable." Captain Webb of the UES Savage was the first to respond. "Copy that, Admiral. My crew is ready to show these bugs what happens when they mess with human space." Chen smiled grimly. Webb was known throughout the fleet for his aggressive tactics and creative solutions to combat problems. If anyone could confuse an adaptive enemy, it was him. "Attention all vessels," Chen continued. "These aliens have never faced humans in combat. They don't know how we think or how we fight. That gives us an advantage, but only if we use it properly. Fight smart, fight dirty, and come home alive." The human fleet moved toward the swarm like a swarm of angry hornets. Unlike the Council ships, which moved in perfect formations with mathematical precision, the human vessels spread out in what looked like complete chaos. Some ships moved fast, others moved slow. Some headed straight for the enemy, others took wide curved paths. There was no pattern to predict or adapt to. Commander Zethkari watched from his damaged bridge and felt confusion replace his fear. "What are they doing?" he asked his tactical officer. "Their formation makes no sense. They're violating every principle of fleet tactics." On his screen, he could see human ships moving in ways that would horrify any military academy instructor. Some vessels were spinning as they flew, making themselves harder targets. Others were flying backwards, using their rear weapons while retreating. One ship was actually flying in a corkscrew pattern that made Zethkari feel dizzy just watching it. "Sir, I think that's the point," his officer replied. "Look at the swarm vessels. They're not adapting to the human attack patterns." Zethkari looked closer and realized his officer was right. The void swarm ships were moving sluggishly, as if their adaptive systems were overloaded trying to process the chaotic human tactics. The aliens had evolved to fight logical opponents who used predictable strategies. They had never encountered an enemy that used chaos as a weapon. Captain Webb fired the first shots of the battle, but instead of using energy weapons like the Council forces, the UES Savage launched a cloud of solid tungsten rods, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic coils. The rods punched through a swarm ship like bullets through paper. The alien vessel tried to adapt, changing its hull structure to better absorb kinetic impacts, but before it could finish the adaptation, Webb fired again with completely different ammunition, this time explosive shells that detonated inside the creature's body cavity. "Target confused," Webb reported cheerfully. "It keeps trying to adapt to my last attack instead of my current one. These things are dumber than they look." Other human ships joined the attack, each using different weapons and tactics. The UES Fury deployed nuclear mines that drifted through space on seemingly random courses before exploding near swarm vessels. The UES Vengeance used its mining lasers to create debris fields, then fired the debris at high speed using magnetic accelerators. But the most effective weapon was human unpredictability itself. Where Council ships used computer systems to calculate optimal firing solutions, human gunners relied on instinct and intuition. They fired at targets that logic said were impossible to hit, and somehow their shots found their marks. Captain Rodriguez of the UES Defiance took the most extreme approach. She ordered her ship to ram directly into a swarm vessel, using the reinforced prow as a weapon. The impact tore both ships apart, but her crew kept fighting, using handheld weapons to shoot at swarm creatures through the hull breaches. "This is insane," Commander Zethkari said as he watched the humans fight. "They're using tactics that should get them all killed." "But it's working, sir," his tactical officer replied. "Look at the casualty reports. The swarm is losing ships faster than they can adapt to the attacks." Zethkari studied his displays and realized it was true. The human fleet was taking damage, but they were inflicting far more than they received. The Void Swarm's adaptive systems, so effective against logical opponents, were failing against enemies who deliberately acted illogically. Admiral Chen coordinated the battle from the center of the chaos, but even her orders seemed random to outside observers. She would order one ship to attack, then immediately tell another ship to retreat. She had vessels firing at targets that were too far away while ignoring closer enemies. But somehow, her seemingly crazy orders produced results. "Admiral, the UES Hammer is reporting complete ammunition depletion," Captain Martinez reported. "They're requesting resupply orders." "Tell them to use whatever they have left," Chen replied. "Kitchen knives, coffee pots, whatever. If it's made of metal and they can accelerate it, it's ammunition." The UES Hammer took her advice literally. Within minutes, the ship was firing its emergency food supplies at swarm vessels using the cargo launcher. Canned beans and freeze-dried meals became improvised kinetic weapons. The sight of a massive alien warship being damaged by flying soup cans was so absurd that several human crews started laughing over the communication channels. The laughter seemed to confuse the swarm even more. Their psychological analysis systems had no reference for opponents who found combat amusing. The alien creatures began making tactical errors, focusing on the wrong targets and failing to coordinate their attacks properly. "Sir, several swarm vessels are beginning to retreat toward the outer system," Zethkari's officer reported. "I think the humans are actually winning." Commander Zethkari felt something he had not experienced in months: hope. The impossible was happening. The primitive humans with their crude weapons and chaotic tactics were defeating an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. "Open a channel to Admiral Chen," he ordered. "I want to thank her personally." Chen's face appeared on his screen, streaked with sweat and lit by the glow of weapon discharges. Behind her, he could see her crew working frantically at their stations, coordinating the chaotic battle with apparent enthusiasm. "Commander Zethkari," she said with a grim smile, "I hope you're taking notes. This is how humans fight a war. Admiral, your tactics are completely illogical by any military standard." "I know," Zethkari replied. "But they're working. How is this possible?" Chen's smile grew wider. "Commander, we come from a planet that's been trying to kill us since day one. Radiation, toxins, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Earth throws everything it can at us, and we just keep adapting. We learned a long time ago that the best way to survive is to be unpredictable." Another explosion lit up space as the UES Retribution destroyed a swarm vessel with a combination of kinetic rounds and nuclear warheads. The alien ship had been trying to adapt to the kinetic attack when the nuclear explosion vaporized it completely. "Besides," Chen continued, "these swarm things made one big mistake. They came into our galaxy and started eating planets. Humans really don't like bullies." As if to prove her point, the remaining swarm vessels suddenly began retreating toward hyperspace jump points. The adaptive enemy that had seemed unstoppable was running away from opponents they could not understand or predict. The first human victory in interstellar warfare belonged to chaos, creativity, and the stubborn refusal of humans to fight fair. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as more human ships arrived from hyperspace. The emergency call had gone out across human space, and now vessels from every world and station were converging on the battle zone. Mining ships from the asteroid belt flew alongside military vessels. Corporate security ships fought next to exploration scouts. Even civilian transports had been hastily fitted with weapons and pressed into service. "Admiral, we now have over 200 human vessels in the system," Captain Martinez reported. "More are arriving every hour." Chen nodded, but her attention was focused on the swarm analysis her science team had just completed. Dr. Kim stood beside her, pointing to data on a portable display. "The enemy's adaptive systems have a critical weakness," Dr. Kim explained. "They're designed to identify patterns and develop counters, but they can only process a limited number of variables at once. When we present them with too much chaos, their systems overload." "How much is too much?" Chen asked. "Based on our observations, they can adapt to maybe 50 different tactical approaches simultaneously. Beyond that, they start making errors and ignoring threats." Chen smiled. "Then let's give them 100 different approaches to worry about. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We are implementing Terran Doctrine Omega. Every vessel is now authorized to use any and all available resources as weapons. There are no rules except one: be creative." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Human crews across the fleet began modifying their ships in ways that would horrify safety inspectors. Engineering teams welded mining equipment to warship hulls. Cargo vessels rerouted their life support systems to power improvised weapons. Even the medical ships began preparing to use their surgical lasers as combat systems. Captain Webb of the U.S. Savage was among the first to embrace the new doctrine. His engineering team had spent the past hour welding ship repair tools to the hull, creating what he cheerfully called the universe's most dangerous construction project. "This is Savage to all ships," Webb announced. "Watch and learn how to properly annoy an adaptive enemy." His ship approached a massive swarm vessel that was trying to consume the fourth planet in the system. But instead of firing weapons, Webb activated his new hull-mounted construction tools. Plasma cutters, welding, torches, and metal fabricators began carving chunks out of the alien ship's hull. The swarm vessel tried to adapt to the attack, but its systems couldn't classify construction equipment as weapons. By the time the creature realized what was happening, the UES Savage had carved a hole completely through its body. The alien ship split in half, leaking biomechanical fluid into space. "Well, that worked better than expected," Webb commented. "Anyone need some construction work done?" Other human ships quickly adopted similar approaches. The UES Fury began using its garbage disposal system as a kinetic weapon, firing compressed trash at high velocity. The UES Vengeance deployed its atmospheric processors to create localized gas clouds that confused swarm sensors. One enterprising captain even began using his ship's automated kitchen systems to manufacture explosive devices from food ingredients. But the most devastating human innovation was tactical unpredictability on a fleet-wide scale. Admiral Chen had given up trying to coordinate her forces using traditional methods. Instead, she implemented what she called organized chaos, a command structure that deliberately introduced random elements into every decision. Captain Rodriguez, attack Target 7 with whatever you think would be most annoying, Chen ordered. Captain Singh, ignore the big swarm ship and go after something small and fast. Captain Park, do something completely unexpected. Surprise me. The results were beautiful to watch and terrifying to face. Human ships moved through the battle, zone like a school of fish, each vessel acting independently but somehow coordinating their actions through pure instinct. They swarmed larger enemies, scattered when faced with superior firepower, and regrouped in unexpected ways. Commander Zethkari watched from his position behind the moon and felt his understanding of warfare crumble. Everything he had learned about military tactics was useless when applied to human behavior. They had no formations, no standard procedures, no predictable responses to enemy actions. Sir, one of the human ships just rammed a swarm vessel while broadcasting what appears to be ancient Earth music, his communications officer reported. The pilot is singing something called Born to be Wild while firing handheld weapons through the hull breach. And that's working? Zethkari asked weakly. Yes, sir. The swarm ship is retreating. It appears to be damaged and confused. Zethkari looked at his tactical display and saw that the humans were winning everywhere. The Void Swarm, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, was being systematically destroyed by opponents who fought with the enthusiasm of children playing a game. But the humans were paying a price for their unconventional tactics. Several ships had been lost to their own improvised weapons or damaged by their reckless attack methods. Admiral Chen watched each loss on her display, feeling the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Admiral, the UES Defiance has suffered critical damage, Captain Martinez reported. Captain Rodriguez is requesting permission to implement final option protocols. Chen knew what that meant. Rodriguez was asking permission to turn her dying ship into a weapon. It was one of the most dangerous tactics in the human military manual, and also one of the most effective. Permission granted, Chen said quietly. Tell her to make it count. The UES Defiance changed course toward the largest swarm vessel in the system, a creature the size of a small city that was directing the alien fleet's operations. Rodriguez had shut down her ship's safety systems and rerouted all power to the engines. The vessel accelerated beyond safe limits, its hull glowing red from the stress. This is Captain Rodriguez to all human vessels. Her voice crackled over the communication system. It has been an honor serving with you. Tell my daughter that her mom went out fighting. The UES Defiance struck the command creature at nearly the speed of light. The explosion lit up the entire star system, visible from dozens of light years away. When the light faded, both ships were gone, leaving only expanding clouds of debris and energy. The effect on the swarm was immediate and devastating. Without their command vessel, the alien ships began acting without coordination. They fought each other as often as they fought humans. Their adaptive systems, deprived of central control, began making random changes that weakened rather than strengthened them. Now we've got them, Chen said grimly. All ships, focus fire on the confused ones. Don't give them time to reorganize. The human fleet fell on the disorganized swarm like wolves on scattered sheep. Ships that had been learning to work together suddenly found themselves fighting alone and afraid. The humans showed no mercy, pressing their advantage with the ruthless efficiency that had made them the apex predators on their homeworld. Captain Webb led a group of mining ships in a coordinated attack that used industrial equipment to literally dismantle a swarm vessel piece by piece. Other human crews used their ship's fabrication systems to create new weapons on the fly, adapting faster than their adaptive enemies could respond. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The Void Swarm, which had terrorized the galaxy for months, was retreating in disorder. The few surviving alien ships fled toward hyperspace, apparently more interested in escape than conquest. "Sir, all swarm vessels have left the system," Captain Martinez reported. "We're reading massive debris fields where their fleet used to be." Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had crushed the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. But she knew this was only the beginning. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we've won the first battle, but this war is far from over. The swarm will be back, and they'll be ready for us next time." "What should we do in the meantime?" Martinez asked. Chen looked at the tactical display where human ships were already beginning rescue operations and salvage work. Her people were adapting to victory just as quickly as they had adapted to battle. "We do what humans do best," she replied. "We get ready for the next fight, and we make sure it's even more chaotic than this one." The stars around them were safe, for now, but Chen knew that somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the Void Swarm was learning from its defeat. When they returned, they would be prepared for human unpredictability. The question was whether humans could stay unpredictable enough to keep winning. The last Void Swarm vessel disappeared into hyperspace like a nightmare fleeing from dawn. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display clear of enemy contacts for the first time in days. Around her, the bridge crew worked, quietly, their faces showing exhaustion mixed with disbelief. They had actually won. "Admiral, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, her voice filled with wonder. "Every council world is trying to reach us. The communication channels are completely overloaded." Chen nodded but kept her attention on the rescue operations. Dozens of human ships were searching for survivors from both fleets, pulling damaged vessels to safety and providing medical aid to wounded crew members. It was what humans did after every fight. They took care of their own and their enemies alike. "Put through the transmission from Commander Zethkari first," Chen ordered. "He fought beside us. He gets priority." The alien commander's image appeared on the main screen. His four eyes showed a mixture of gratitude and amazement that Chen found strangely touching. Behind him, she could see his crew working to repair their damaged ship. "Admiral Chen," Zethkari said, "I have commanded fleets for 3 centuries. I have studied every military campaign in recorded galactic history. What I witnessed today should not have been possible." "Commander, we just did what humans always do," Chen replied. "We adapted to the situation and found a way to win." "But your tactics violated every principle of warfare," Zethkari protested. "Your ships had no formation discipline. Your crews acted independently without central coordination. Half of your weapons were improvised from civilian equipment. By every military standard I know, you should have been destroyed within minutes." Chen smiled tiredly. "Maybe that's why it worked. The swarm had studied your military standards for months. They knew how to beat logical, disciplined opponents, but they had never faced enemies who were willing to break every rule to get the job done." "Admiral, we are receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council chambers," Rodriguez interrupted. "High Chancellor Wisdom Beyond Stars is requesting immediate communication." "Put him through," Chen said. The ancient alien leader appeared on screen, but he looked different than before. Where once he had seemed cold and distant, now Chen could see something like humility in his expression. Behind him, the great council hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all talking excitedly. "Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all member species, I offer our deepest gratitude," the Chancellor said. "Your fleet has accomplished what our greatest minds said was impossible. The Void Swarm has been defeated and driven from our galaxy." "Just temporarily, sir," Chen replied. "Chen, they'll be back eventually, probably with new adaptations for our tactics. We need to be ready for them." "That is exactly what we hoped you would say," the Chancellor responded. "The Council has voted unanimously to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Federation, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. But we also have a special request." Chen raised an eyebrow. "What kind of request?" "We would like to create a new military division within the Council forces," the Chancellor explained. the Department of Impossible Warfare, dedicated to developing defenses against threats too chaotic for conventional military thinking. We would like humanity to lead this department. Chen looked around her bridge, seeing her crew's surprised faces. They had gone from being considered too primitive for galactic civilization to being asked to lead its military defense in a single day. I'll need to discuss this with Earth Command, Chen said. But I can tell you that humans don't like leaving jobs half-finished. If you want our help building defenses against chaos, we'll do it. But we do things our way. We would not have it any other, the Chancellor replied. Your way is precisely what we need. The transmission ended and Chen turned to address her crew. Well, people, it looks like we just became the galaxy's problem solvers. Any objections? Captain Martinez grinned. None here, Admiral. But I think we should ask for hazard pay. This job sounds dangerous. The bridge crew laughed, and Chen felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Her people could face anything as long as they could laugh about it afterward. It was one of humanity's greatest strengths. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission, Rodriguez reported. This one is from Earth. President Williams appeared on screen, calling from the Oval Office in New Geneva. Behind her, Chen could see the blue curve of Earth through the window, beautiful and peaceful in the afternoon sunlight. Admiral Chen, we've been monitoring your communications with the Council, the President said. The entire world is watching the news feeds from your battle. I have to ask, are you sure we're ready for this kind of responsibility? Chen considered the question carefully. Humanity had only been in space for a few decades. Their technology was primitive compared to Council standards. Their military experience was limited to small conflicts and training exercises. But they had just defeated an enemy that had crushed civilizations millions of years old. Madam President, I don't think anyone is ever ready for this kind of responsibility, Chen replied. But that's never stopped humans before. We figured out how to fly by jumping off cliffs. We learned to sail by getting lost at sea. We became a spacefaring species by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions and hoping for the best. In the ray, President smiled. That's very true. And if anyone can figure out how to defend against impossible threats, it's probably the species that evolved on a planet actively trying to kill them. You have our full authorization to accept the Council's proposal. Thank you, ma'am, Chen said. We'll try not to start any galactic incidents while we're learning the job. Somehow, Admiral, I doubt that's possible. But I have faith in your ability to handle whatever consequences arise. Good luck out there. The transmission ended, and Chen turned back to her crew. Around them, the human fleet was finishing its rescue operations and beginning the long process of repairing damaged ships. It was messy, chaotic, and completely human in its approach. So, Admiral, what's our first order of business as the galaxy's new problem solvers? Captain Martinez asked. Chen looked at the tactical display where scattered debris marked the sites of the recent battle. Human crews were already studying the wreckage, learning from their victory and preparing for the next challenge. First, we set up a permanent base in this system, she said. The swarm will be back, and when they come, we need to be ready with something they've never seen before. What kind of something? Martinez asked. Chen's grin was equal parts anticipation and mischief. I'm thinking we build a space station that can transform into a giant robot, just to see the look on their faces when they realize we've weaponized our entertainment industry. The bridge crew stared at her in shock for a moment, then burst into laughter. It was such a ridiculous idea that it might actually work, and if there was one thing humans had learned from their victory, it was that ridiculous ideas were often the most effective ones. You know what, Admiral? Martinez said, wiping tears from his eyes. After today, I'd believe we could do anything. A transforming space station sounds perfectly reasonable. Rodriguez, send a message to the engineering corps on Mars. Chen ordered. Tell them to start drawing up plans for our new secret weapon, and make sure they include plenty of backup systems. We're going to need them when we start breaking the laws of physics on a regular basis. As the human fleet prepared to return home and begin their new role as galactic defenders, Chen took one last look at the stars around them. Somewhere out there, the Void Swarm was regrouping and planning their return. Other threats lurked in the darkness between galaxies, waiting for their chance to test themselves against galactic civilization. But for the first time since the crisis began, Chen felt genuinely optimistic about the future. Humanity had proven that sometimes the best defense against impossible odds was impossible solutions. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was making the impossible look easy. "Set course for Earth," Chen ordered. "We have a galaxy to defend, and I want to be home in time for Sunday dinner." The human fleet turned toward home, carrying with them the hopes of countless worlds and the promise that no matter what horrors emerged from the void, there would always be someone ready to meet them with creativity, courage, and a complete disregard for the rules of conventional warfare. The age of human galactic protection had begun.